Night 2, -37. Wood gone. No fire crackling. Just my breath fading into the white fog. I remember the silence. It wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, alive, watching me. Every sound, the wind, the tent fabric, my heartbeat felt louder than my thoughts. And for a moment, I realized this wasn't just cold. It was survival stripped bare. They say the second night is when your mind starts to drift, when warmth becomes a memory, not a feeling. I had no fire, no backup plan, just me, the frost, and a promise to see the dawn. The tent was frozen stiff. Every gust made the fabric crack like thin glass. Even my breath, every exhale turned to frost that clung to my beard. Hours since the last fire. Wood gone. And the cold didn't leave. It moved in, it crawled up from the ground, settled deep in my bones. You'd think more fire means more heat. Not here, not at -37. Fire burns fast, too fast. It flares, dies, and leaves you colder than before. I tried scraps, fabric, paper. Nothing held, only smoke and silence. Then I remembered the Sami. Up north, they didn't fight the cold. They trapped their warmth. Reindeer hide, thick dry, snow on top. Snow strange, right, but it reflects heat, acts like a mirror. So I laid the hide down, wrapped tight, brushed snow over myself. At first, it felt wrong, like burying myself alive. But slowly the air changed. The wind screamed outside. Inside, still. The cold stopped biting. Temperature inside -4. Body stable. Breathing slow. That's when it hit me. More fire isn't always safer. Sometimes, less is survival. Restraint keeps you alive out here. Just like in life, warmth isn't about burning. It's about holding on. By midnight, the cold had changed. Not the biting kind anymore, deeper. Quiet. Heavy. The kind that seeps through layers, crawls up your spine, and sits behind your heart. I needed a place to rest, so I dug. Slow. Careful. The snow went deep, half my arm before I hit the frozen earth. Hard. Unforgiving. Lie down on that, and it'll steal your heat in minutes. That's when you learn. Cold doesn't kill fast, it kills quiet. I remembered an old trick. Slav woodsmen, Viking raiders. They called it the stone bed. Heat from below, not from above. That was their secret. I found a few flat rocks under the snowbank. Heavy. Cold. I set them near the candle flame and the little oil lamp I had left. It took time, maybe 40 minutes. Long enough for your hands to stop feeling like hands. Then I slid the stones beneath the bed of hay and hide. When I laid down, the heat spread slow, gentle, real. 4 hours, maybe 5. My back warm. My feet no longer numb. No burns, no smoke. Just quiet warmth. And lying there, I thought the Vikings had it right. They built their warmth from the ground up, from the base, from the bones of the earth. Because real heat doesn't fall from the sky. It rises from beneath you. And that night, it kept me alive. The night got darker, not just outside, inside too. When the last candle died, it was like the world forgot light existed. No wood, no oil, nothing left that could burn clean. The kind of darkness that makes you hear your own pulse. Each breath, a small cloud rising, fading. I needed light, not just to see, but to stay human. That's when I remembered the Inuit. They had something called a kulak, a lamp of animal fat, old as the Arctic itself. Simple, reliable, real. So I built my own. A tin can from last night's meal, a strip of wool torn from my mitten, and frozen fish fat hard as stone but still full of life. I melted it slow over the candle stub, then fed the wick. 1 spark, 2, then flame. Small, golden. But that glow, it changed the whole tent. The air filled with a soft sweetness like roasted meat. The smoke curled slow. The flame whispered instead of crackling. And for the first time that night, I could see my breath again. They say light is heat, but sometimes heat is hope. That tiny flame, no bigger than my thumb, held the weight of survival. In the end, I realized the real warmth wasn't from the fat or the fire. It was from the thought that something so small could keep a man alive. Somewhere after 3 a.m., the cold changed again, the kind that makes the air solid. Every breath froze before it left my lips. I could feel it ice building inside the tent. Each inhale brought a sting. Each exhale turned to frost. And the more I breathed, the colder it got. A cruel paradox. The thing keeping me alive was also draining my heat. I covered my mouth with a glove. Didn't help. The air kept stealing. So I stopped moving. Just listened. The wind pressed against the canvas. And in that silence, I remembered something, an old note from Arctic journals, Eskimo, and Chukchi camps. They built a breath shelter, a bubble of warmth. Small, personal. So I took a small cloth, wrapped it loosely around my head and mouth, left a gap just enough to breathe through. It looked ridiculous, felt strange, but within minutes the air changed. My breath no longer vanished into the cold. It stayed, circulating, warming the pocket of air around my face. A small bubble of life. Temperature rose maybe 20%. My skin stopped burning. The frost stopped forming. And I realize sometimes survival isn't about fighting the storm. It's about building your own little world inside it. The thing that saved me that night wasn't a fire. It was breath. Simple. Human. Like in life when things get too cold. Sometimes all you can do is breathe. Slowly. By dawn, the wind was the real enemy, not the cold itself. The wind. It sliced through the tent like knives through paper. Every gust stole warmth. The walls shuddered. The air inside spinning restless, cruel. You could feel it. Each breath fought to stay warm, but the wind won every time. That's when I remembered something, a note from an old Scandinavian field manual. The wind wall. Not for beauty, for survival. So I stepped out. The sky was gray, the snow knee-deep. My hand stung as I shoveled, shaping block after block, curved them like a crescent moon around the tent. Shoulder high, thick, close, not a wall of strength, a wall of silence. It took nearly an hour, but when I crawled back inside, everything changed. The tent stopped shaking, the air went still, and then warmth began to stay. I checked the thermometer, -30 outside. Inside, -23. 7 degrees difference. That's not comfort. That's survival. They say snow is cold. But when used right, it's your best insulator. It reflects your own heat back, like a mirror made of frost. And sitting there, feeling the air finally calm, I realized something. Sometimes what keeps you warm isn't the fire. It's the boundary. Because in the wild, just like in life, a good wall can save you. Before sunrise, I started shaking. Not a normal shiver, deep tremors, the kind that come from inside the bones. It felt like the cold had finally reached the core. I tried flexing my fingers. They didn't move. My legs were stiff heavy. The body was giving up heat and taking orders from the cold. That's when I remembered something, a note from a Russian doctor, early 1900s. He called it the body heat loop, a last defense when everything else fails. I pulled my knees to my chest, wrapped my arms tight around them, buried my face between my elbows. A closed circuit, a loop. The first minute felt worse, hard to breathe, heart racing. Then something changed. The air inside the loop warmed up. Each breath recycled heat, slowly, gradually. 2 degrees, maybe 3, but it was enough. My shivering slowed, the ache eased. I could feel warmth building, not from fire, not from fat, but from within. The body feeding itself heat like an ancient engine. And lying there, I realized this was the first furnace mankind ever had. Before flint, before torches. It was us, our own breath, our own pulse. Sometimes survival is brutal. Sometimes it's quiet. And sometimes it's just a man holding himself together literally, Because when the world turns cold, you learn to warm yourself from the inside out. By that hour, the storm had gone quiet. No more howling wind, just silence and moonlight. The tent was crusted in ice, every tool stiff, every thought heavy. I was tired, hungry, and alone. It wasn't fear anymore. It was the slow drift toward nothing. You start hearing things, your own heartbeat, your own mind, whispering, close your eyes. But I didn't. I forced a breath, then another, and I spoke out loud to no one. Names, numbers, random thoughts just to keep the lights on upstairs. Then I grabbed my notebook and started writing. Words froze before the ink dried, but it didn't matter. It meant I was still here, somewhere in that silence. I remembered a line from the sagas. Vikings used to say, "You survive, not because you're strong. You survive because you refuse to quit." That hit different when you're staring into the cold. So I kept talking, kept writing, kept being, and slowly something strange happened. I began to feel warm, not skin warm, soul warm, like a quiet fire starting inside my chest. Science calls it adrenaline and metabolism, but it felt like something more, real, measurable, human. When dawn came, the tent was frozen solid, but inside, my breath still rose warm, and I knew mental fire burns longer than wood ever could, because in every winter, the greatest warmth comes from within. By morning, the storm had finally broken. No fire, no wood, just me still breathing. 7 kinds of warmth kept me alive that night, from stone, from fat, from breath, from snow, and from will, each one small, each one real. People talk about survival like it's about strength. It's not. It's about understanding the laws of heat, what gives it, what steals it, and what you can hold on to. Here's the truth. You don't need fire to live through the cold. If you understand how heat moves, you can build warmth out of nothing. That's physics. That's heritage. Our ancestors knew it. The Vikings, the Inuit, the Slavs, they all learned how to warm from the inside out. They didn't just fight the cold, they worked with it. And maybe that's what we've lost. We have central heating electric blankets, thermostats, but somehow we're still cold. Because not every night needs fire to survive. Sometimes all you need is warmth inside.